Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Magic the Conversation. I know over the weekend I already reviewed the first like 3/4 of the Legend set, but I do want to keep the video, the set all in one video, so I'm just going to start from the top and do Legends all over again. Start off with Legends did come out June 1994. It is the third expansion from Magic itself. It would be the set to actually have the first legend, or Legends was the theme, hence the name of the set. Legendary creatures would be like heroes and villains and iconic characters in Magic that were generally more powerful than a regular creature that you could have more than one out on the battlefield. Legends was also the first set to have gold cards, which are cards that cost more than one mana of a specific color to cast. I'll go ahead and I'll talk about more of those cards as they become revealed, starting with Abomination. Artwork is really good. Looks like he came out of a Hellraiser movie or something like that. 5 mana 2/6. All green and white creatures blocking or blocked by it are destroyed at end of combat. So it's like a Basilisk card, but only against green and white. It does get around protection, but if you're playing against other colors, not much of a use, and he is costly, and his attack, his power is only 2, so I just like the card for the artwork alone. Next is Acid Rain. Destroy all forests in play. It's like the polar opposite to the Tsunami card that was in a former set that destroyed all islands. This one destroys all forests for blue, kind of like payback to them. Active Volcano for 1 red. Destroy a blue permanent or return an island to its owner's hand. All enchantments on the land are destroyed. This is a really powerful card for red because red normally doesn't bounce lands. And if you're using a deck that can change the opponent's land types, this card would be really good. Adam Oakenshield, he's the first gold card, as you can tell by the border. He is a legendary creature, and he costs 1 black, 1 green, and 1 red. He also has an activated ability of the same. The sideways T means tap, which would later be the arrow pointing to the right. Select 1 creature from your graveyard and put it in your hand. So he slowly resurrects creatures from your graveyard and puts them back in your hand. And at his passing, the bodies of the world's great warriors shall rise from their graves and follow him to battle. The Anvilonian Grimoire. Adventurers Guildhouse. All green legends can band with other legends. So your green legendary creatures gang banding with other legendary creatures. But this is not a good card at all. It's a land that doesn't even tap for mana. That is horrible. And banding is not a good ability either. Arathi Berserker. Triple red and 2/4 with Rampage 3. Rampage is the creature gets +X/+X on the turn, where X is equal to the number of the ability. They get that for each creature that blocks it beyond the first. So if your opponent uses 2 little creatures to block 1 and your attacking creature has Rampage, it'll get stronger. Wrathy children who show promise are left to survive for a year in the wilderness. Those who return are shown the way of the Berserker. But he's got weak attack for 5 mana. Not worth it. Aisling Leprechaun. 1/1. All creatures that block or become blocked by the Leprechaun become green. Use counters to indicate those changed creatures. That's a very unique ability. Green doesn't have that ability to this day anymore, where it can change colors of your opposing creatures and permanents. Akron Legionnaire, 8 mana, 8/4. None of your non-artifact creatures may attack except for Akron Legionnaire. So if you are running artifact creatures, they can still attack with him. I know I didn't mention that the first go around. But he's a big creature for white. 8 mana, 8/4. His toughness is lacking for the 8 mana casting cost, and he doesn't have any other like abilities like flying, trample, or first strike. But I guess back in the day when options were limited for white beat stick, Akron Legionnaire was a viable option. Al Abara's Carpet, 5 mana, pay 5, tap it, prevent all damage done to you by target creature without flying. Good defensive card, although a bit costly. Alabara simply laughed and lifted one finger, and the carpet carried her high out of reach. Alabaster Potion, 2 white and X. Target player gains X life or prevent X damage done to any creature or player. Healing is a matter of time, but it is sometimes also a matter of opportunity. The D'Avenant Proverb. This was a quick way to gain life at instant speed. Late game, it would be much better where you could afford more mana for X. I think a lot of people probably gained life more than they prevented damage to a creature or player. Alcor's Tomb, 4 mana, pay 2, tap it, change the color of target permanent you control to a color of your choice. And this changes it permanently with counters. I could definitely, if I owned this card, I would build so many decks around it. Did not know it existed. All Hallows Eve. The artwork for this card is great. 4 mana. After it's cast, it's exiled with 2 counters on it. During your upkeep, remove a counter. When you remove the last counter, all players take creatures from their graveyards and put them directly onto the battlefield. So it's a graveyard revival for everybody. Really good card if you build a deck around it. And if you have ways to exile your opponent's graveyard, this will give you full benefit without giving your opponent any defense to match it with. Amro Kithkin, 1/1 for 2 white. Creatures with power greater than 2 may not block Amro Kithkin. The blocker's power may be increased after blocking has been declared. Quick and agile, Amro Kithkin can usually escape from even the most fearsome opponents. Kithkin will become a creature type many years later in the Lorwyn block. They're kind of like Magic's version of hobbits. Angelic Voices, 2 white and 2. As long as the only creatures you control are white and artifact creatures, all your creatures get +1/+1. This rewards you for sticking to just one color with white. If you have any other colors out, it doesn't do anything. Angus Mackenzie, a blue, a white, and a green. Pay the same and tap them. Creatures do not assign any combat damage this turn. Use this ability before the combat step. He's fog on a stick, so to speak. You can fog every turn with him. He'd be kind of annoying in Commander, I think. Anti-Mage Aura, 3 mana. All enchantments on target creature are destroyed. Target creature cannot be further targeted by instant sorceries or enchantments. And this set's very enchantment and aura heavy, so that would be good. Arborea, 4 mana. This enchant worlds were just enchantments that affected all players, not just the owner. If a player does not cast a spell or put a card into play from on their turn, no creatures may attack that player until their next turn. It's definitely a crazy defensive card if you want to trigger a stalemate until you draw what you need to draw. Arcades Sabath. He is a cycle of 5 Elder Dragons. One of them we'll talk about later as he comes up in the list. He would soon become one of Magic's biggest villains. Antagonists, if you will. But the rest of his crew are not as powerful as him. Like I said, we'll mention him when we get there. But Arcades Sabath is first of the Elder Dragons, alphabetically. Costs 7 mana for 2, 4, 6, 8. He has flying, and you can tough this Give him toughness +1 until end of turn for every white that you tap. Your untapped creatures get +2 to their toughness. If they attack, they do not get the bonus. However, you have to pay 1 white, 1 green, and 1 blue during your upkeep or sacrifice him. So he's very costly, and all the Elder Dragons are costly, and they do require the upkeep of 3 mana, 1 of each of their corresponding colors. But they were win conditions nonetheless back in the day. Arena of the Ancients, 3 mana artifact. All legends come into play tapped. Legends do not untap as normal during their untap step. Now, this card would be great in Commander. In Commander, instead of playing with 60 cards or however, you choose a legendary creature. Your deck can only consist of artifacts and colors of whatever your creature is. So if your Commander is a green legendary creature or Planeswalker, you could only use green cards and artifacts cards in your deck. Anyway, Arena of the Ancients would always make it to where when your opponent plays their Commander or any other legend, it would come into play tapped, and it doesn't untap during their untap step. Very powerful card for Commander, and it is legal. Avoid Fate for 1 green, counter target interrupt or enchantment. It can only counter spells that target a permanent you control. So it was a good card against like blue and red. And black, they had heavy instants or sorceries to target your creatures. You can use that to counter that. Axelrod Gunnarsson, 4, 2 black and 2 red. 5/5 trample. Each time a creature goes to the graveyard during a turn in which Axelrod damaged it, you gain 1 life and Axelrod deals 1 damage to target player. Excuse me. 8 mana for a 5/5 trample. Kind of costly, but this ability sprinkles a little better on it, but it's still not a good card overall. Aisha Tanaka, 2 white, 2 blue. She has banding and tap it. Artifact effect, which requires an activation cost, is countered unless its controller pays a white. Yeah, she's an artifact counter card, so to speak, if they have activated abilities. Azure Drake, 4 mana, 2/4 flying. The Azure Drake would be more powerful if it was not so easily distracted. I like Drakes because I like dragons. They're one of my favorite creatures from fantasy. And Drakes are kind of like lesser evolved draconic beings. The card itself isn't good though. 4 mana for only 2 power. I guess it's more for defense than offense. Backdraft. Does half the damage rounded down done by the 1 sorcery cast this turn to the caster of the sorcery. So if they fireball you for 10, if you use Backdraft in response to the fireball, then they take 5 damage from their own fireball, but you still take the 10. Backfire for 1 blue for each damage done to you. For each point of damage to you from target creature, for each point of damage done to you from target creature, Backfire does 1 point of damage to target creature's controller. I gotta reread that. When a enchanted creature deals damage to you, Backfire deals that much damage to that creature's controller. So that would cause an opponent to think twice if they want to attack with their big creature. I think I read this card incorrectly on the first review. I think I viewed this as a pariah card. Barbary apes, unpredictable in the extreme. These carnivorous apes will prey upon their own kind. They're like grizzly bears, but they're apes instead of bears. Not bad, not good. Barktooth Warbeard. He has no abilities. He costs 7 mana for a 6/5. I guess that's okay. He is devious and cunning in both appearance and deed. Beware the Warbeard, for his brute bites as well as he barks. But creatures with no abilities, especially when they cost this much, are not good in today's standards, in my opinion. Bartel Rune Axe. Black, green, and red. She cannot be the target of enchantment spells, and she has vigilance. See, she's better. She only costs 6, where this guy costs 7. She has the same power toughness, but she also has vigilance, and she can't be targeted by enchantments. Or auras, specifically. Thundering down from Hammerheim, no foe could slow down Bartel's charge. Yeah, she is strictly better than the above card. Beasts of Bogarden, 5 mana, 3/3, protection from red. Gets +1/+1 if opponent has any white cards on the battlefield. Bogarden is a land as volatile as the creatures who live there. Currently my favorite card. As we scroll down, I know as you saw in the former stream, I did stop on one card where I thought was the best currently. But Beasts of Bogarden piqued my interest the first time. Black Mana Battery. If you need black mana and you don't have any, you can still cast it because it only costs 4 colorless. This is an artifact. You can pay 2 and tap it to put a counter on it, or you could tap it, add 1 black to your pool, and then you may remove as many counters as you wish to add an additional black for each counter that you originally had charged the Mana Battery with. Good for color fixing back in the day, although now there are better color fixing options. Each color would get their own version of Mana Battery in this set. Blazing Effigy, 2 mana, 0/3. When placed in the graveyard from the battlefield, it does 3 damage to target creature. If Blazing Effigy damaged another effigy in this manner and is placed in the graveyard this turn, it also deals an amount of damage received from the other effigy in addition to its normal 3. So if you have 4 out and 1 dies, you can have 1 deal it to the other, and then it would deal 6, and then you can deal 6 to a target. If you want to kill another effigy, it would become 9. And if you had 4 out and you wanted to wipe them all out just to deal 12 damage to a creature, not worth it though. The rules are confusing enough as it is, but that card never seen reprinted or light of day. I don't even know if anyone ever played with it. Blight, 2 black. If enchanted land becomes tapped, it is destroyed at the end of the turn. Black was the best land destruction color back in the day. Eventually, red would take it over, almost being exclusive to the color. But white with Armageddon and green would even get some land destruction cards in the future. Bloodlust. For 2 mana, target creature gets +4, -4 until end of turn. If this would reduce their toughness to less than 1, it reduces it to 1 instead. I like the card. I used it a lot, and I had a deck full of creatures with First Strike. I didn't care about my creature's toughness as long as their power was strong enough. First Strike keeps them alive in battle if they were able to kill the blocking or attacking creature that it was in combat with. Bloodlust was a good combat trick to either ensure my creatures lived, or if I needed to get the extra 4 damage in to either kill my opponent or just to get that far ahead in damage. Bloodlust is a good card for that. It's almost like Titanic Growth, except, you can also use this offensively if you wanted to kill one of your opponent's creatures that had really high toughness. If you attack with a 1/1 and they have a 5/5, if they block with the 5/5, you can cast Bloodlust on their creature, making their 5/5 a 10/1, and your little 1/1 creature will now kill it. They would trade in combat. I know I did not mention that earlier in the prior stream about Bloodlust, that you could use it on your opponent too, as like a poor man's removal spell. Blue Mana Battery is the blue version of the Black Mana Battery. Excuse me. Boomerang. For 2 blue, you return a permanent to its owner's hand. Really good power for blue. You can return a creature, a planeswalker. Boomerang even lets you return a land, because it says return target permanent. It doesn't say non-land permanent. So using Boomerang on your opponent's land, especially on the second turn, sets them behind because you can only play one land a turn under regular rules. You could also save one of your creatures from dying, or if your opponent just cast a big spell on one of their creatures, you could boomerang their creature to their hand to cancel that spell. A lot of options Boomerang has. Excuse me. Boros Devilboon, 5 mana, 2/2. He looks like a mannequin almost. 2, a red and a black. Tap him. Put a demon token into play. Treat this as a 1/1 red and black creature. He ends up being a zombie wizard. Brian Hag, 4 mana, 2/2. On the turn in which Brian Hag dies, all creatures who dealt damage to it become 0/2 creatures. Use counters to mark these creatures. Unique ability for blue. I know in Magic's future, they would kind of stay away from having the power and toughness be different. They would either make the creature like a 1/1 or a 2/2. It's just easier to remember than having two different numbers change on a creature in that manner. Bronze Horse, 7 mana, 4/4 trample. Damage done to Bronze Horse by spells which target it is reduced to 0 as long as you control another creature. Excuse me. The 7 mana is costly, but the trample is nice. And if your opponent is running red with a lot of burn spells, as long as you have another creature, they won't be able to remove the Bronze Horse with their sorceries. Carrion Ants, 4 mana, 0/1. For 1 mana of any color or colorless, they can get +1/+1 until on the turn. War is no picnic, my father liked to say, but the ants seem to disagree. From General Chanik Voltaroth. I do like Carrion Ants better than Beasts of Bogarden. I actually owned this card, and I had a deck that had a lot of creatures with the ability that Carrion Ants have. And I would have a lot of mana pumped into it, and if one creature got through combat and hit the opponent, I would dump as much mana as I possibly could to beef that creature up and deal as much damage as I could to the opponent. Good offensively, but defensively weak, because if you're tapped out of mana, if you don't have any mana to spend, the ants are just a 0/1 creature. I do love the artwork. Cathedral of Sarah. All white legendary creatures can band with other creatures. So just like the green one that we saw earlier, the Guild House or whatever it was called, doesn't even tap for mana, so it's bad, 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 bad. Cat Warriors, 3 mana, 2/2 Forest Walk. Those stealthy felines have survived so many battles that some believe they must possess many lives. A good card against green. 3 mana, 2/2, somewhat unblockable creature is a good casting cost per ability. Caverns of Despair, 4 mana. Players can only attack with no more than 2 creatures, and they can block with no more than 2 creatures. This is definitely a good card against decks that like to swarm you. Elves, goblins. White generally has a lot of quick, small casting creatures that they try to overwhelm you with on the battlefield. That really stops that strategy. Chain Lightning, 1 red. It's a sorcery. It deals 3 damage to any target. When Chain Lightning does damage, the target of the spell may pay 2 red mana. If they do, they get to do 3 damage themselves to any target. And I guess as long as each person has access to 2 red mana, the chain will keep on going until no one can afford it. If your opponent isn't playing red, then most of the time you're just going to see the 3 damage happen, and that's it. It's like a poor man's lightning bolt. Chains of Mephistopheles. Each time a player draws a card, that player must discard a card from their hand. If there are no cards in that player's hand, then they take the top card of their library and put it in the graveyard. This enchantment does not apply to the card drawn on the player's draw step. Really good card otherwise, especially against blue, when blue is one of the best colors to draw cards with. This can be comboed with Teferi's Puzzle Box, which forces each player to draw additional cards during their draw step. Or I should say after. Chromium, the second of the Elder Dragons. 7/7 flying, Rampage 2. The Rampage part isn't that good because Chromium has flying, and a lot of creatures with flying aren't going to be held back as blockers most of the time unless there's a bigger creature with flying on the battlefield. If Chromium also had Trample, then the Rampage would be much better, but the fact that he doesn't trample, your opponent isn't really going to want to block with more than one creature if they can afford it. The artwork reminds me of Blue Eyes White Dragon, though, which is really cool. Oh, we got a no-no card. Cleanse. 4 mana. All black creatures in play are destroyed. It's like a Wrath of God against black. The clouds broke and the sun's rays burst forth. Each foul beast in its turn faltered and was gone. I know why the card got blacklisted. No pun intended. It just makes it when the society turns to political correctness now. I can understand why Wizards did what they did with this card. Clergy of the Holy Nimbus, 1/1. When Clergy are destroyed or take lethal damage, the opponent must pay 1 colorless or they are automatically regenerated. Definitely a unique ability. They could be used as a blocker over and over again if the opponent does not have the mana to pay for it. Cocoon, 1 green. Tap enchanted creature you control and put 3 counters on it. That creature does not untap as normal, and during your untap step, remove one of those counters. After the last counter is removed, sacrifice the cocoon, and that creature gets a +1/+1 counter and flying. The fact that you have to disable one of your creatures for 3 turns just to get 1/1 and flying isn't that good. But it does give green the ability to give any creature they want flying, albeit at a slower pace. I know there are cards that will let you remove counters from permanents, so you could speed up the process. It reminds me of Cocoon of Evolution from Yu-Gi-Oh! But that card is just way better in terms of its power level. But flavor-wise and artwork, the card does what the rules match the card. If I owned this card, I would probably, because I like insects and bugs and stuff, and spiders, arachnids, I would probably just run Cocoon just for the fun of it if I owned the card. But I never did. Concordant Crossroads. For 1 green, all creatures have haste, meaning they can attack as soon as they enter the battlefield, or they could tap to use their activated abilities. Since it's for both players, you're at a real risk using the card. If your opponent isn't playing a creature-heavy deck, then it would help you out. You could speed your creatures out quicker. Cosmic Horror, 6 mana, 7/7. So 6 mana, 7/7 is already good. First Strike is even better. However, you have to pay its casting cost during your upkeep, or it does 7 damage to you and is destroyed. So as long as your opponent doesn't mess with your lands or your mana base and you can afford it, then you have a 7/7 First Striker for 6 mana that's most likely going to take out anything on the field for that mana cost. Then flash the living lightning from her eyes, and screams of horror rendeth the frightened skies. Alexander Pope, The Rape of the Lock. Cosmic Horror, I guess this is Shoggoth from the Lovecraft World. Craw Giant, 7 mana, 6/4 trample. Here's the dummy ability Rampage again, only for 2. Hartog gave a jolly laugh as he surveyed the army before him. Ho ho ho, midgets, you think you could stand in my way? I used Craw Giant in my Basilisk deck because I used Lure, which forced, if I didn't have any Basilisks to use, I would put Lure on the Craw Giant. And he would, because he has trample, the Rampage then is more effective. They had 8 creatures, and I put Lure on the Giant. All those creatures have to block him, and then he would get plus 14/14. And if they're just 1/1s, then you're going to trample over for a lot of damage. So I did own the card, and I did use him. I had minimal success with him, but I did kill a few opponents with him. And if my Basilisks had already wiped the battlefield, he would just do 6 damage a turn and eventually give me the win that way. Crevice, 3 mana, creatures with Mountain Walk may be blocked as though they did not have the ability. I think each color gets a version of this in the set. Crimson Kobolds. They cost 0 mana to cast, so you could cast them even if you don't have any lands out. They still count as a red spell and a red creature. Kobolds are harmless. From Baron the Bold, his epitaph. This doesn't look like a strong card at all, and by itself it is rather weak. But there are other kobolds in the set and in Magic as a whole that will boost them up. Crimson Manticore, 4 mana, 2/2 flying. You pay a red and tap them to deal 1 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Noted neither for their good looks nor their charm, Crimson Manticores can be fearsome allies. As dinner companions, however, they're at best left alone. As a Manticore, I would have expected him to have at least a 3/3 body, 3 power, 3 toughness, not 2/2, especially for the 4 mana, and he only does 1 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. I think he should do a lot more than that. Otherwise, they should have made him like a Drake or something. Crookshank Kobolds, just another version of the Kobolds that we saw, the Crimson Kobolds. The Crookshank military boasts a standing army of nearly 24 million, give or take 22 million. Cyclopean Mummy, 2 mana, 2/1. If the mummy is placed in your graveyard from the battlefield, remove it from the game. The ritual of plucking out an eye to gain future sight is but a curse that enables the living to see their own death. This card just sucks as a whole. It has nothing good for it. It's if it was a 2 mana 2/2 for black, and because it's a zombie, then I could justify it being exiled when it dies just for like aggressiveness, how aggressive the card could be. But it's not even that. I would even think it could have gotten away with having 3 power instead of 2. The artwork is great though, but the card is just bad. Dakin Blackblade, opposite of bad. He's pretty good for what he did back in the day. A black, 2 blue, white, and 2 colorless. He has XX, where X is equal to the number of lands you control. My power is as vast as the plains. My strength is that of mountains. Each wave that crashes upon the shore thunders like blood in my veins. So as the game gets longer, you're going to have more land out on the battlefield. So he is going to get stronger as the game progresses if you decide to play all your land as you draw into it. Darkness. These look like Xenomorph. Like the whole thing just screams aliens. For 1 black, creatures do no combat damage this turn. It's a black version of Fog. White has one in this set too. It's called Holy Day. We'll see it later. So almost every color has access to this card. Nowadays, they dominantly gave the Fog ability to green. I mean, that's where it originated from, via Fog. But this card would be reprinted in Time Spiral, which would come out like 20 years prior. If I must die, I will encounter darkness as a bride and hug it in my arms. From William Shakespeare, Measure for Measure. The Avenant Archer, 3 mana, 1/2. You can tap her to deal 1 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. She's just like the Manticore, except you don't even have to pay a red to use her. And she does the same ability, she just doesn't fly. Deadfall, 3 mana. It's the green version of countering Forest Walk. Demonic Torment, 3 mana. Enchanted creature deals no combat damage and cannot attack. It is a strange card for black because black would either normally make the creature become like --, or just destroy it outright. But this kind of just like paralyzes it, almost like a pacifism. Devouring Deep, 3 mana, 1/2, Island Walk. Full fathom 5, thy father lies. Of his bones are coral made. Those are pearls that were his eyes. Nothing of him that doth fade, but doth suffer a sea change into something rich and strange. From The Tempest by William Shakespeare. I know I complained about this card prior, and I'll complain about it again. If you're going to have a name like Devouring Deep, and the artwork, like look at the maw on this serpent here. He only has 1 power and 2 toughness. So this is not a Devouring Deep Leviathan. It is an eel. A little eel. They made it a fish, but they should change the name then. If anything, Devouring Deep should not have the name of something that only has 1 power. Disharmony, for 3 mana. Target attacking creature becomes untapped under your control. This creature is no longer considered an attacker. So if somebody attacks you with a bunch of creatures, or more than one, you can use Disharmony to steal one of the attacking creatures and use it as a blocker to block one of the attacking creatures. Oh no, never mind. You don't even get to block with it. You just untap that creature and remove it from combat. You gain control of it until end of turn. So I guess if it has an ability, then you can use it. So it's not as good as I originally thought it was. Divine Intervention, 8 mana. When it enters the battlefield, put 2 counters on it. During your upkeep, remove a counter. When the last counter is removed, the game is over and is considered a draw. That would be a really crappy feeling if you and your friends or whatever are playing a big game of Magic. Or if there's like 6 people in your play pool and somebody casts this card just for all the hours that you played just for the game to end in a draw because of this. Absolutely horrible. I don't think it was fun at all for anybody who ever faced this card. And if you're already winning, why would you even cast it other than maybe troll? Divine Offering, 2 mana, destroy an artifact. You gain life equal to its casting cost. Teheran stared at the twisted lump of metal that had been a prized artifact. The fight was getting ugly. Good artifact hosing spell, and it rewards you with some life depending on how costly the artifact was. Divine Transformation, 4 mana enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3. I think it should get flying as well, but then I think the card would be pretty powerful. Just because of the artwork, it looks like somebody's becoming an angel. Glory surged through her and radiance surrounded her. All things were possible with the blessings of the divine. Dreamcoat. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature becomes a color to any other color. This ability can be played as an interrupt. You can only change the creature's color once per turn. Adopt the character of the Twisting Octopus, which takes on the appearance of the nearby rock. Now follow in this direction. Now turn a different hue. From Theonis Elegies 1/215. Pretty much turns your creature into a chameleon. You can change your color at will, but only once each turn. Darkwood Boars, 5 mana 4/4. They don't do anything. And the unclean spirits went out and entered the swine, and the herd ran violently. From Mark 5:13. 5 mana 4/4, I guess, is okay. It's not horrible, but there are better cards for 5 mana. There are a lot of creatures in Magic that cost 5 that are 4/4 that have an ability in addition to that. These piggies doing nothing. Dwarven Song. For 1 red, you can change the color of one or more creatures to red until end of turn. It's part of the color changing card cycle. Elder Landworm, 7 mana, 5/5 trample. It cannot attack until it's blocked a creature. Sometimes it's best to let sleeping dragons lie. So flavor-wise, the card is great. It's literally like a sleeping dragon, a worm, if you will. I mean, that's what its creature type is. It is a worm. I did use this card I like the artwork on it. And I like the idea of like your opponent awakening a sleeping beast. White did not have a lot of creatures with trample back in its day, and it still doesn't. But the 5/5 for 7 nowadays standards is not good. Elder Spawn, 7 mana, 6/6, cannot be blocked by red creatures. You have to sacrifice one of your islands during your upkeep, or the Elder Spawn does 6 damage to you and is sacrificed. Almost like Cosmic Horror, but not as good. Way more punishing. Elven Riders, 5 mana, 3/3 elves. Can only be blocked by walls and creatures with flying. Good evasive card for green. Sometimes it's better to be swift of foot than strong of sword arm. Elven Proverb. I can see these guys, unless your opponent was using walls or creatures with flying, you'd be able to take control of the battlefield and hit your opponent for at least 3 each turn with the riders. Emerald Dragonfly, 2 mana, 1/1 flying, pay 2 green, it gets first strike until end of turn. Flittering, wheeling, darting into strike, and then gone just as you blink. The Dragonfly Haiku from an unknown poet. I really love the artwork. I really love dragonflies as a whole. I chose Emerald Dragonfly to favor over the Carrion Ants. But later on, we would see another kind of flying insect become my favorite card of the set. Enchanted Being, 2 mana or 3 mana 2/2. All damage dealt to Enchanted Being during combat by creatures with enchantments on them are dealt to 0. Being in an enchantment heavy set, this card was good if your opponent did rely on such a strategy. Milo, what the heck? Sorry, my cat just like crashed into the sliding glass door. I don't know what he's after. Enchantment Alteration for 1 blue. Switch target enchantment from one creature to another or from one land to another. The controller of the enchantment does not change, and the new targets must be valid. Energy Tap for 1 blue. Target untapped creature you control becomes tapped. You add an amount of colorless mana equal to its casting cost. If you need a quick fix of mana, you need to ramp up somehow, some way, use Energy Tap. Equinox for 1 white. Enchanted land. Goes on a land. You could tap the enchanted land to counter a spell that destroys 1 or more of your lands. So it's anti-land destruction. Did not know it existed. Eternal Warrior for 1 red. Attacking creature gains vigilance. It does not tap to attack. Red doesn't really have many creatures with vigilance, so this enchantment is very unique for its color. White has the most vigilance, and then blue and green would get a few. Black would get some in its early day. Warriors of the Tsunami Mitu School spend years in training to master the way of effortless effort. Eureka, E = MC², Albert Einstein. We would see him again in the set. 4 mana. Both players may take any permanents in their hand and put them directly onto the battlefield. Players take turns playing one card at a time from their hand in this way until this effect ends when no other player chooses to put a permanent onto the battlefield. If X is in the mana cost of any of these permanents, X is 0. Just like with All Hallows Eve, it is a risk. If your opponent is playing larger creatures than you, then Eureka will help them get them out for free. You would need to hope that your creatures are better in your hand. It is a gamble. If you know the deck your opponent is playing and you think you can survive whatever they might have in hand and you're safe to cast Eureka, more power to you. Evil Eye of Ormsbagor, 5 mana, 3/6. None of your creatures can attack except for Evil Eye of Ormsbagor. It could only be blocked by walls. The Highway of Fear is the shortest route to defeat. I would love to see updated artwork on this card. Otherwise, I assume this eye shoots a laser or causes your opponent to cower in fear. 5 mana for 3 power is low, but the 6 toughness is good. But none of your other creatures can attack, so your eye will always go through. And if they don't use any walls, then they're always going to get 3 damage a turn. If you have multiple eyes out, each one will be able to attack as well, amping up the unblockable damage. But the 5 mana is again costly. What is this creature type? Eye. I did not know Eye was a creature type in Magic. Fallen Angel, 5 mana, 3/3, flying. For free, you can sacrifice a creature to give Fallen Angel +2/+1 until end of turn. I did have the card. We can see that her wings have been plucked out, and she is now up to some dastardly deeds. She lost her grace. She lost her honor. I used her in a deck where I wanted my creatures to die. I had creatures that whenever they went to the graveyard, an ability would happen. And Fallen Angel would ensure that would happen. In addition to her getting the boosts. And she has flying. So she won me a few games back in the day. Falling Star, 3 mana. This is a gimmicky card. Flip Falling Star onto the playing area from a height of at least 1 foot. It must turn at least 360 degrees or it has no effect. When it lands, it does 3 damage to each creature that it touches. Any creatures damaged by Falling Star that are not destroyed become tapped. I hope you bring out the tape measure and you have no wind blowing when you use this card, if anybody even used it. It's a ridiculous concept. Faint. For 1 red, all creatures blocking target attacking creature become tapped. Target attacking creature and all creatures blocking it deal no combat damage this turn. Red's version of Fog. I like the artwork because this orc or goblin is pretending to shoot an arrow that's not there. Field of Dreams. For 1 blue, the top card of each player's library is always face up. So it gives you and your opponent some knowledge on what card you'll be drawing next. Some people say that the world is round, and if you travel far enough, you'll come to the other side where everything is upside down. Fire Sprites. 2 mana, 1/1 flying, green fairies. You pay a green and tap it to add 1 red to your mana pool. This ability is played as an interrupt. If you are running a deck that needs red mana and you only have access to green, the Fire Sprites are a way to filter that green into a red so you're able to cast your red spells. Firestorm Phoenix, 6 mana, 3/2. That's a big casting cost for its stats. It has flying. If it dies, return it to its hand instead of the graveyard. It cannot be summoned again until its owner's next turn. So that's why it costs so much. It's almost an undying creature that always comes back. The bird of wonder dies, the maiden phoenix. Her ashes new create another hair, as great in admiration as herself. From William Shakespeare, King Henry VIII. Or I should say, from King Henry VIII, from William Shakespeare. Flash counter. 2 mana. Counter target, interrupt, or instant spell. She grinned at me a wicked grin. I hope you weren't relying too heavily on that, my dear. From Medrin Silverwand, her diary. This card does counter spells. Instead of 2 blue, it only counts a blue and a colorless. So it affords you some mana flexibility as a way to counter spells. Or removal spells that have instant speed, like Boomerang, Lightning Bolts, several destroy cards. Flash Flood for a blue, destroy a red permanent, or return a mountain to its owner's hand. Polar opposite of that earlier card we saw on the list. Floral Spasm, 4 mana 2/2. If it attacks and is not blocked, you may choose to have it deal no damage this turn. If you do, then it will destroy an artifact under the opponent's control. 4 mana is kind of costly for its 2/2. The artwork looks weird, but it's destroying this obelisk, so to speak. I think it would be better if you didn't have to sacrifice it not dealing damage. Obviously, I think the casting cost, it would still be a decent card if that were the case. But the fact that you have to trade the damage to destroy an artifact, not so good. Force Spike for 1 blue. Counter target spell unless its caster pays 1. Still one of the decent counter spells to this day. Force Spike stopped your opponent from playing their first card as long as you had mana out, if you were the player who went first. It also stops players if they tap all their mana to use a big fireball. You can just pay a blue, Force Spike, and their big spells countered. Force Spike always made a mage or player think twice about fully tapping all their land when casting their spells. Forethought Amulet, 5 mana, pay 3 during your upkeep or the amulet is destroyed. If you take more than 2 damage from a sorcery or instant, the damage is reduced by 2. It's an artifact that keeps you, reduces damage from red burn spells. It does cost 5. Most of the time red's going to fry you down to half your life by the time you have access to 5 mana. Fortified Area, 3 mana. All your walls get +1 power and banding. Whoop-de-doo. Frost Giant, 6 mana 4/4. Here's Rampage again. The Frost Giants have been out in the cold a long time, but they have their rage to keep them warm. He's got 2 heads. Gabriel Angelfire, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. His face looks like a Muppet. 4/4. During your upkeep, you choose one of the following abilities until your next upkeep. Flying, First Strike, Trample, or Rampage. Too bad he can't gain each one individually, but had to keep the power level at a point. Gaseous Form, 3 mana, enchant creature. Damage done to enchant a creature is reduced to 0. The creature also deals no combat damage this turn. It's just like the black card that paralyzes, takes a creature from combat. Gauntlets of Chaos, 5 mana. You pay 5, sacrifice it, gain control of target land, creature, or artifact. Then you have to give control of a permanent you control to the person that you stole the card from. They have to be the same card for card, so if you take a creature, you have to give them a creature. If you take an artifact, you have to give them an artifact. Enchantments on the traded permanents are destroyed. Ghost of the Damned. Really love the artwork on this card. 3 mana, 0/2. You can tap them. Target creature gets power -1 until end of turn. Voices of the dead ring in the heart long after they have faded from ears. Giant Slug, 2 mana, 1/1. You have to pay 5 mana. During your controller's next upkeep, Giant Slug gains the land walk ability of your choice. So depending on what colors your opponent is playing, you can make your slug unblockable for 5 mana. Very costly just to deal 1 unblockable damage. The fact that it's a giant slug, but it only does 1 damage is kind of bad. I mean, the whole card is just bad itself. Who am I kidding? Giant Strength for 2 red. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2. Oh, it is excellent to have a giant strength, but it is tyrannous to use it like a giant. Measure for Measure by William Shakespeare. This guy's pulling a... I assume this is a War Plow? Giant Turtle. 3 mana, 2/4. It cannot attack if it attacked during the last turn. That's a unique ability. I like turtles. I like the card. I like the artwork. This turtle does look pissed off against these lumberjacks. The turtle lives twixt plated decks, which practically conceals its sex. I think it's clever of the turtle. It's such a fix to be so fertile. From the Turtle by Ogden Nash. It's probably one of the only Magic cards that has the word sex in it too. Glyph of Delusion. All right, the next following cards would be glyphs. It would be exclusive for walls. Put X counters on 1 target creature that target wall blocked this turn. X is the power of the blocked creature. Creatures do not untap as normal while it has 1 or more of these counters on it, and then 1 counter gets removed during the creature's controller's upkeep. Red does target wall you control gets +10 power when it's blocking. Any damage dealt to that wall is reduced to 0, but then the wall is destroyed at the end of your turn. This would be great in decks that have Fling. Fling is a spell that costs 2 mana. You sacrifice one of your creatures, and it does damage to any target equal to its power. And it is an instant, so if you have a wall out, let's say Wall of Stone, a 0/8, your opponent attacks, you use Glyph of Destruction on your wall, making it a 10/8. It'll kill most likely kill whatever blocks it, or whatever it's blocking, I mean. And then you can sacrifice it with the card Fling to deal 10 damage to your opponent's face right there. I did not know these glyphs existed, but I think the red one probably has one of the best. Blacks, all creatures blocked by target wall are destroyed at end of combat. He knows he has a short span of life and that the day will come when he must pass through the Wall of Oblivion. William Faulkner. Most of the time, a wall is only going to be able to block 1 creature, so Glyph of Doom means you can only destroy 1 creature. There will be a wall later on called Wall of Glare, which is able to block any number of creatures. So Glyph of Doom with Wall of Glare would be a really nice combo. The white glyph, damage done to target wall by attacking creatures, is added to your life points. So all damage done to a wall from combat that it blocked, you gain life. This is probably the weakest one. Glyph of Reincarnation. Now this one is weird. Play after combat is over. All surviving creatures blocked by target wall this turn are destroyed. For each creature destroyed in this way, choose 1 creature from its owner's graveyard and return it to play under the attacker's control. Treat those creatures as though they were just summoned. If there are not enough creatures in the attacker's graveyard, all creatures in the attacker's graveyards are returned to the battlefield. This is another powerful one too, but it also depends on what your opponent's graveyard situation is. Gosta Dirk. 3, 2 white and 2 blue, 4/4 first strike. Creatures with Island Walk may block as though they did not have that ability, or may be blocked as though they don't have that ability. He looks like he's from One Piece. Gravity Spear. 3 mana, all creatures lose flying. On the morning of the Battle of Galashan, the sorcerer's cry rang out, "Let no bird fly, let no creature take wing, let all the battle join as one." Really good against flying strategies. Dragons, angels, birds, they all go to the ground. Great defender. For 1 white, target creature gets +X to their toughness, where X is equal to that creature's casting cost. Greater Realm of Preservation. This is a super circle protection against black or red. You pay 2 to prevent all damage dealt to you from 1 black or red source. If a source does damage to you more than once a turn, you must pay 2 for each time to prevent the damage. Great Wall. Creatures with Planeswalk may block as though they did not have the ability. Greed. This is a powerful enchantment for black and would be redone as a card many times. For 4 mana, you can pay 1 black. It costs 4 mana to cast, but once it's on the battlefield, at any time you can pay a black to draw an extra card and you lose 2 life. There is no calamity greater than lavish desires. There is no greater guilt than discontentment, and there is no greater disaster than greed. From Tao Te Ching, 46. The artwork is good because this guy is so greedy. This Scrooge here, he's got a pile of coins, and because he's hugging them, he does see this one coin that didn't make it into his pile. So I could just see him going to grab for this coin. Because he's going to grab for the coin, the rest of his other coins are going to go all over the place. And that's kind of like the greed scenario of, by people being greedy, they most of the time will end up losing it all. Gambling is a great example of that. Green Mana Battery, just like the blue and black ones from earlier, does the same with green. Gwendolyn de Courcy, provocative looking card. 2 black, a red, and a blue. 3/5 for 4 mana. That's really good. You tap her. Target player discards a card from their hand at random. This power can only be used during your turn. Really good card. Urborg became the final resting place of many swordsmen of renown. They're still outmatched by the wiles of Gwendolyn. She's a good blocker, but the fact that the opponent has to discard at random is really powerful. Halfdane, a white, a black, a blue, and a colorless. Its power toughness is equal to 3 when it enters the battlefield. During your upkeep, it gains power and toughness of target creature other than itself. If there are no other legal targets, Halfdane keeps its 3 power, 3 toughness. Hail from Teleria, the ever-changing Dane. Is it a shapeshifter? Yes, it is. Only really good if you already have a powerful... requires the current power and toughness of target creature. Oh, so you can target your opponent's creatures too. So if your opponent has a really strong creature, then your Halfdane will turn into it. Hammerheim, a legendary land that finally taps for a mana. This taps for red. Remove all land walking ability from target creature until end of turn. This would stop the unblockable aspect if they ran the corresponding land walk. 'Tis distant lends enchantment to the view and robes the mountain in azure hue. I still don't know if I'm pronouncing azure right. Thomas Campbell, Pleasures of Hope. Hazazon Tamar. I know he's one of the protagonists in the storyline. I have the book for Legends, but I don't really remember it 100%. I just remember that Hazazon was one of the main protagonists. Pay a 4, a white, a green, and a red. 2/4. So 7 mana for 2/4 does not look promising. At the beginning of your next upkeep, after he is put onto the battlefield, put a star token, put X Sand Warrior tokens into play, where X is the number of lands you control. Treat these as 1/1 white, green, and red creatures. When Hazazon leaves play, all Sand Warriors are removed from the game. So if you have 7 land out, at the beginning of your turn, you're going to get 7 1/1 creatures, and that in lies it's powerful. Hazazon by himself isn't impressive, but that ability, being able to put out all those sand tokens, makes him really good. The Headless Horseman, 3 mana 2/2. The ghost rides forth to the scene of battle in nightly quest on his head. He sometimes passes along the hollow like a midnight blast. From The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, Washington Irving. The artwork is amazing. It's got comic book vibes thanks to Quentin Hoover. What is his creature type? Zombie Knight. He doesn't do anything, though. He doesn't have any abilities whatsoever. But the Headless Horseman is an iconic supernatural character from history. So to see it on a Magic card is pretty cool. Heaven's Gate. For 1 white, you change the text or color of one target creatures to white until end of turn. This was the color filter ability in the cycle in the set. Hellfire, my favorite card before we get to the other green insect I was talking about. For 5 mana, you destroy all non-blight creatures. Hellfire does X plus 3 damage to you, where X is the number of creatures destroyed in this way. So it is, you do have to pay to destroy the battlefield in this way. But if you're running black, all your black creatures survive, and you should be able to swing for the kill then, because if your opponent wasn't playing black, they won't have any creatures out on the battlefield unless they have like regeneration or indestructible. High on a throne of royal state, insatiate to pursue vain war with heaven. Paradise Lost by John Milton. These were crusaders, and they got bathed in hellfire while this diabolic demon is laughing in victory. Probably one of the best artworks of a card that I've seen. Hell's Caretaker. This would be opposite because can't even see what this is. 4 mana. What's this creature type? Horror. Yeah, the art is horrible. Sorry, Sandra Everingham. 4 mana, 1/1. You tap it during your upkeep, sacrifice a creature, and put a creature from your graveyard directly onto the battlefield. Treat this creature as though it were just cast. You might leave her, Chandra, should another take your place. I used this card in, I had a Necromancy deck where you would want to discard your large creatures early, and then cards like Hell's Caretaker would put them out on the battlefield, cheat them out, so to speak. Hellswarm. For 1 black, all creatures get -1 attack until end of turn. The brightness of day turned into an instant to dusk as the swarm descended upon the battlefield. Kind of wish it did more. I think maybe you should have given -2 attack. If you got a swarm of wasps attacking you, they're gonna do more than just -1 to your attack. Holy Day. This is the white version of Fog. The Day of Spirits, my soul's calm retreat, which none disturb. From the Silix Scintillans, Henry Vaughan. Hornet Cobra. 3 mana, 2/1, first strike. Then inch by inch out of the grass rose up the head and spread the hood of Nag, the big black cobra, and he was 5 feet long from tongue to tail. From the Jungle Book, Rudyard Kipling. So this is literally the fusion of a hornet and a cobra, 2 aggressive creatures. I love snakes, they're my favorite animal. But this will not be my favorite card from the set. Horn of Deafening. 4 mana, you pay 2 and tap it. Target creature deals no combat damage this turn. A blast, an echo, then silence. So this disables a creature from doing any damage via combat. Pretty good. Horror of Horrors. 5 mana enchantment. At any time, you may sacrifice a swamp to regenerate a black creature. And a Horror of Outer Darkness after, and dust returneth to dust again. From the swimmer, Adam Lindsay Gordon. The artwork is horrific. It looks pretty damn cool. It is powerful, too, that you can sacrifice land at any time to regenerate any of your black creatures. You just got to be sure you don't end up not having any lands left. Hunding Gornison. 3 for 2 blue and a white. 5/4 Rampage 1. You would never guess at the terrifying sight of the man that Hunding was as charming as a companion as you could wish for. He definitely does not look charming. Hyperion Blacksmith. 3 mana 2/2. You tap him, target opponent. Target artifact controlled by your opponent becomes tapped or untapped. The smith, a mighty man is he, with large and sinewy hands, and the muscles of his brawny arms are strong as iron bands. From the Village Blacksmith, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Definitely will mess up your opponent's artifacts, or creatures even, depending if they want to keep them tapped or untapped. Ichneumon Druid. 3 mana, 1/1. It does 4 damage to any opponent casting an instant. This does not apply to the first instant cast by the opponent each turn. So if your opponent is running a very instant-heavy deck, the Druid will punish them if they cast more than 1 instant a turn. It would cause them to think twice, slowing down their strategy or punishing them outright via the 4 damage if they choose to pursue it. Immolation for 1 red. Enchanted creature gets +2/-2. Just like with Bloodlust, you could use this on the opposing creature if they have 2 toughness or less to outright remove them from the battlefield. We got another no-no card. Imprison. I don't know why this is a no-no card. I don't know if like this guy is naked and that's why they are putting it on the blacklist. But for 1 black, you pay 1 each time target creature attempts to attack, block, or tap for an ability. That action is prevented and the creature becomes tapped. If the mana is not paid, the enchantment is destroyed. Weird card. Indestructible Aura. For 1 white, any damage dealt to target creature for the remainder of the turn is reduced to 0. Theodore strode the battle line, snatching swords with his bare hands and casting them aside until all cowered before him. This is a very rock star looking card. Infernal Medusa. 5 mana, 2/4. All non-wall creatures blocking or are blocked by her are destroyed at end of combat. So this is almost like the Abomination, but color doesn't matter with her. Infinite Authority. 3 white. Enchanted creature. All creatures with toughness 3 or less blocking enchanted creature or blocked by enchanted creature are destroyed at end of combat. At the end of the turn, put a +1/+1 counter on enchanted creature for each creature destroyed in this way. Definitely makes a creature exhort their authority. In the Eyes of Chaos, 3 mana, all instants and interrupts are countered unless their caster pays an additional X, where X is the casting of the spell being cast. So they have to pay double the mana if they want to use an instant or an interrupt. It definitely hoses counter spells, and especially blue, green with combat tricks. But it also affects you too. So you would have to make sure you don't rely on instants and interrupts yourself. Got another blacklisted card. I can definitely tell why this is. Invoke Prejudice. 4 blue mana. If an opponent casts a creature spell that does not match the color of any of your creatures, that spell is countered unless the caster pays an additional X, where X is the casting card of the card. So just like with the instants, this card does the same with creatures. If they cast a creature that doesn't share a color with any of yours, they have to pay double the mana of the creature or the spell is countered. But because of the artwork, the card is blacklisted. It's literally the KKK. And we can tell why that is not a good idea to be represented nowadays. Ivory Guardians. 6 mana, 3/3. Protection from red. All Guardians get +1/+1 if an opponent controls any red cards. So if they have a red card, you're still paying 6 mana for a 4/4, but the protection is nice. The elite guard of the Mesa High Priest, the Ivory Guardians, were created to protect the innocent and faithful. Some say their actions are above the law. It'll stop a lot of red creatures in its track. The only red creatures that will go over it are ones with flying, whether it be dragons or phoenixes. Jaquez Levert. All your green creatures get +2 toughness, including himself, because if they have green in the casting cost, he still counts as a green creature. Even though he's a gold card, he counts as a white, he counts as a green, and he counts as a red. So since he gives all your green creatures +2 toughness, that means he gives himself. So he's actually 4 mana for a 3/4. Abandoning his sword to return to the lush forest of Pendelhaven, Jaquez Levert devoted his life to protecting the creatures of his homeland. Jasmine Boreal, 5 mana, 4/5, doesn't do anything. Peace must prevail, even if the wicked must die. Not the best, but isn't absolutely terrible. Those the boars that I showed earlier, 5 mana, 4/4, she's better than them. Jedit Ojanen, 4, a blue and 2 white. He's a 5/5. Again, he doesn't do anything for 7, so he's even worse. Mightiest of the Cat Warriors, Jedit Ojanen, forsook the forests of his tribe and took service with the Robaran mercenaries, rising through the ranks to lead them in the battle for Ephrafa. I do think he is in the storyline as well as a secondary protagonist. But we'll get to the antagonist of the Legend set very soon. Gerard of the Closed Fist, 3, 2 red and or 2 green and a red. So 6 for a 6/5, not bad, better than Jedit. Once the Order of the Closed Reach reached the Cabrian Highlands, now Gerard alone remains to uphold their standard. We will see another Gerard in Magic's future. That would be better than this guy. He can't even show his face. Here's our bad guy from the Legends set, Johan. A white, which is weird. You would think he'd be black, a green, and red. But he's white, black, or white, green, red, and 3. If he attacked, or if he did not attack and is not tapped, all your other creatures can attack without tapping. So he gives all your other creatures vigilance as long as he did not attack and as long as he's untapped. 5/4. So it's pretty decent. I think Darth Maul took the makeup from him because Legends was out before that Star Wars movie was. Jovial Evil. Jovial Evil does 2 damage to the opponent for each white creature they control. Today, for a lark, let's visit the plains. I'm sure we'll find something to entertain us. Now, as I said before, one of White's strategies is to overwhelm the opponent with many small creatures. So if they have 10 creatures out and you cast Jovial Evil, they're going to take 20 damage. So Black punishes that strategy with this card. I did not know it existed. The artwork's pretty cool. It looks like a Deathclaw from Fallout. Which, by the way, Magic does have a Fallout set coming out very soon. Juxtapose. 4 mana. Target player and the caster each choose one of the creatures they control with the highest casting cost. Exchange control of those creatures, then do the same for artifacts. The control of any enchantments played on those permanents is not changed. If a player does not have any artifact or creature, do not trade the type for the card. Funny card. Caracas. Taps for a white. Return target legend to its owner's hand. Enchantments on that legend are destroyed. Definitely probably one of the most powerful cards in the set compared to the other cards in it, because since the set is so legend heavy, Caracas is a land, so it can't be countered, and the fact that it can return any legend to its owner's hand is even good. Even better in Commander, too. To make a prairie, it takes a clover and 1 bee. 1 clover and a bee and a reverie. From Emily Dickinson. Yep, the card is banned in Commander because it would be so broken to just keep returning your legend or your opponent's legend. Hey, Fatal. Good to see you, and thank you for the words of encouragement. Casimir the Lone Wolf. 4, a white and a blue. He's a 5/3. Popular indeed is the tale of how Casimir was once a holy man who renounced his order to take up the sword, but this is a tale no more likely than any other. It's weird that he doesn't have green in his casting costs, or red, since those are the colors of the wolves, so to speak. Keepers of the Faith. 3 mana, 2/3. They don't do anything. And then the Archangel Antheus spoke to them, saying, "Fear shall be vanquished by the sword of faith." Kai Takahashi. 2, a white and a green. You can tap them to prevent up to 2 damage to any one creature. Not the best. Killer Bees. Here's the green creature, the insect I was talking about. They're like carrion ants, except they cost 1 less, and they have flying, and you need to use green to beef them up, as opposed to 1 mana of any color or colorless. The Communal Mind produces a savage strategy, yet no one could predict that this vicious crossbreed would unravel the secrets of steel. Just the idea of a bunch of bees, uh, especially with them learning weaponry, is very funny. And I like the artwork. Definitely my favorite card in the set so far. Probably will be it. I can't think of any card off the top of my head that I like better in the set. Kismet, 4-mana enchantment, very powerful card. All creatures, lands, and artifacts played by your opponent come into play tapped. Now the artifacts isn't that big of a deal, I guess, but creatures come into play tapped on your opponent's side means if they have haste, that haste just got wasted. They're not able to attack with their creatures that have haste. Lands come into play tapped are even better because it just sets them behind for an entire turn in which they could have played a spell. Knowledge Vault, 4 mana, pay 2, tap it. Take a card from your library without looking at it and place it face down under Knowledge Vault. Sacrifice it to discard your entire hand and take cards from the vault and put them into your hand. If it leaves play, all cards under it go to your graveyard. So as you're, how much does this cost? 4. I see a little frog here. That's cute. So as you're playing the game, you can, if you have extra mana, you can pay 2 and tap it and take the top card of your deck and put it under the knowledge. And then when you run out of cards in your hand, you can sacrifice it and refill your hand. As long as your opponent doesn't mess with it. Kobold Drill Sergeant, 2 mana, 1/2. All your kobold gain +1 toughness and trample. It's weird that they get toughness and trample, but we'll see kobolds that give the plus attack. Joining this army is easy, boy. Just survive your first battle. Kobold Overlord, 2 mana, 1/2. First strike. All your kobolds gain first strike. 1 for all for 1. We strike it first, and then you're done. Oath of the Kobold Musketeers. So as you can see, the more kobolds that are out, the more abilities they give each other. Almost like slivers. What's a sliver? We'll find out later in Magic's future. Kobolds of Kur Keep. They're just like another version of the free one. This guy's picking his nose. Kur Keep is uniquely among fortresses, impervious to aerial assault but defenseless from the ground. Kobold Taskmaster. Here's the guy that gives all your kobolds +1 in power. The Taskmaster knows that there is no cure for the common kobold. Play on words for the common cold. Cry Shield. You pay 2, tap it. Target creature you control deals no damage this turn, but gets +X toughness, where X is the casting cost of the creature. Good card for your defenders. Lady Caloria. She costs 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. She's a 3/6. You tap her. She does 3 damage to target attack and her blocking creature. So she can block her creature and then tap to deal an additional 3 to them, meaning she can deal 6. She slayed this giant looking thing. It looks like she got some ears on her though. Dang, for an elf. Yep, she's an elf. I was about to say, if they didn't make her an elf, I'd be like, that's an oversight. Lady Evangela, a black, a blue, and a white. You can pay a black and a white. Target creature deals no combat damage this turn. We see a lot of that reoccurring in the set. When my lady was young, the sight of a rainbow would fill her soul with peace. As she grew, she learned to share her rapture with others. Lady Gabriella. Lady Orca. I think she's a demon. Yep. 7 mana, 7/4, doesn't really do anything else. I do not remember what he said to her. I remember her fiery eyes fixed upon him for an instant. I remember a flash, and the hot breath of sudden flames made me turn away. When I looked again, Angus was gone, a wayfarer on meeting Lady Orca. I do think she was in the book as well, in the story. Her name is familiar. Land Equilibrium, 4 mana. If your opponent controls at least as much land as you do, they must sacrifice a land every time they put a new one into play. So this makes sure that they never have more land than you. I like the artwork. This almost looks like a photograph. Props to you, Jesper Myroffs. Land's Edge. For 3 mana, any player may discard a card at any time. If they discard a land, Land's Edge does 2 damage to target player. So if you're done dropping land, you can just discard them and deal 2 damage to any target. but your opponent can also do the same, so you got to watch out for that. Land tax, one of the most powerful white cards, and not by winning in itself, but it's such a good setup card. During your upkeep, if an opponent controls more land than you, you may search your library for up to 3 basic lands and put them into your hand. Reshuffle your library afterwards. So why is this so good? Let's say you only start off with 1 plains and land tax in your opening hand, and you have all other spells. You don't have to mulligan because you'll play your plains and then you'll play land tax. Then the opponent will play their land, or if they went first, they already have a land out. So after they play their second land, that's when you're able to get the gold from land tax and then search your deck for 3 land, and that should set you up for the whole turn. It just helps you without having to lose a card when you mulligan. Definitely a really good card in Magic's history. Lesser Werewolf. 4 mana, 2/4. You can pay a black. Lesser Werewolf gets -1 power until end of turn. Put a -1 toughness counter on the creature that blocks or is blocked by the werewolf. You may not use this ability to reduce Lesser Werewolf's power below 1, so you can only use it twice upon normal circumstances. Werewolf's breaking through something. Lifeblood. 4 mana, you gain 1 life each time a mountain becomes tapped. Foolish Wizard. As you tap the power of your lofty keep, so grows my strength. Good against red. Life Chisel. For 4 mana, you sacrifice a creature during your upkeep to gain life equal to its toughness. This guy or girl is going to be sacrificed very soon, and they do not look pleased. Life Matrix. For 4 mana, you tap it. During your upkeep, put a counter on target creature. You may remove a counter at any time to regenerate that creature. Pretty good, but costly. Living Plane. For 4 mana, all lands in play become 1/1 creatures. They cannot be tapped when they enter the battlefield. Artwork has this dwarf being attacked by the woods themselves, I should say. If you have a lot of land out, more than your opponent, then this would definitely benefit you. But again, since it's Enchant World, you have to watch out that your opponent's playing with, because they're going to have more creatures too, as their lands are. But it could actually work out if you play a card that says deal 1 damage to all creatures, all land will be destroyed. Lavona Salone. 2 green, 2 red, 2 colors, 4/4, first strike, legendary land walk. Lenova's own nature is a matter of mystery. Nothing is known for sure, merely rumors of unearthly stealth and unholy alliances. What is she? A human warrior. Not bad. Not the best, though. Lord Magnus. 4/3 first strike. Creatures with planeswalk or forest walk may be blocked as though they did not have the ability. So he counters those land walks. Lost Soul. 3 mana, 2/1 with Swamp Walk. She walks in the twilight. Her steps make no sound. Her feet leave no tracks on the dew-covered ground. Her hand gently beckons. She whispers your name, but those who go with her are never the same. I had this card when I started playing Magic. I loved the artwork. I loved the whole idea behind it. I had cards that turned my opponent's lands into swamps if they weren't already playing swamps as well, which would make her unblockable. So good memories with this card. Mana Drain. For 2 blue, counter target spell. At the beginning of your next turn, add X mana to your mana pool, where X was the cast cost of that spell. Definitely good where you would counter one of your opponent's spells, and then it would let you pay a more powerful spell on the next turn. Mana Matrix. Costs 6. Pay up to 2 less when casting an instant, interrupt, or enchantment spell. The fact that it costs 6 means that this 2 mana less thing might not be beneficial, because there are not a lot of instants or interrupts or enchantments that cost 6 mana or more. Marble Priest. 5 mana, 3/3. All walls able to block the Marble Priest must do so. Walls able to block more than 1 creature can also still do so. Damage dealt to Marble Priest from walls during combat is reduced to 0. So he stops walls from blocking the other creatures if they can. Marhalt, Elsdragon. Is he an elf? Yep. There's Rampage again. 4/6. Marhalt follows a strict philosophy, never letting emotions cloud his thoughts. No chance absorber could imagine the rage in his heart. Sometimes I think they just gave these creatures random power and toughness. Master of the Hunt. 4 mana 2/2. Pay 4 to put a wolf token onto the battlefield. Treat this as a 1/1 green creature with banding with other wolves. So the more wolves you have out, the bigger they can be to attack together. Hey, Ivik Peterson, welcome in. I'm doing well. Just doing a Magic stream where I review some sets from Magic the Gathering. I hope you're doing well. It's good to see you as always, my friend. Mirror Universe for 6 mana. You tap it. Sacrifice it during your upkeep to switch life totals with your opponent. So if you're at 10 life and if you're at 2 and they're at 10, using this card means you're now at 10 and they're at 2. Definitely change the outcome of a battle. Moat. 4 mana. Enchantment. Creatures without flying cannot attack you. The purpose of any moat is to impede attack. Some are filled with water, some with thistles, some are filled with things better left unseen. If I had a moat, I would fill it either with jellyfish or crocodiles. Very good defensive card for white. Mold Demon. 7 mana 6/6. When it enters the battlefield, the controller must sacrifice 2 swamps or Mold Demon is buried. The fact that you have to lose 2 of your swamps, and he already costs 7 for a 6/6. He doesn't have any other abilities. Not worth it. The artwork looks cool but childish at the same time. The Mold Demon definitely ripped something apart, but it also looks like a child finger painted it. No offense to you, Jesper Myroffs. The artwork still comes together as a whole. And you did this next card, Moss Monster, which looks phenomenal. After the battle, an eerie silence gripped the forest. The loser's remains were lightly dusted with green. He costs 5 mana as a 3/6, and he doesn't do anything either, which is disappointing, but the artwork is good. Ivik's doing great. Just working with your Super Mario Maker 2 levels. I will be playing Super Mario Maker 2 again very soon. Mountain Stronghold. This is the red version of the legendary banding crap. Mountain Yeti. 3/3 Mountain Walk protects you from white. The Yeti's single greatest asset is its unnerving ability to blend in with its surroundings. Good against white. And other red. We're a little more than halfway there. Nebuchadnezzar. I forgot that his guy's name was horrible. 5 mana 3/3. Pay X and tap him. Name a card. The opponent reveals X cards from their hand at random. If the name card is revealed, they have to discard the card. You can only use this during your turn. So if you have cards like Boomerang where you return their card to their hand and you have this guy out, you can name the card that got returned because you know it's in their hand. And if they reveal it, then you got rid of that card for good. Unless they bring it back from the graveyard somehow. Nether Void, 4 mana. All spells cast are countered unless their casters pays an additional 3. So this definitely slows everything down by 3 mana in addition to a spell cost is a lot. These days, some wizards are finding that they have a little too much spell left at the end of their mana. Nicol Bolas. Black, red, and blue, and 2 colorless. He would end up being the 3rd Elder Dragon Legend, 7/7 flying. When he deals damage to an opponent, they have to discard their entire hand. You have to pay a blue, a black, and a red during your upkeep to keep him alive. He is probably the best of the 5 Elder Dragon Legends, and he is the aforementioned big antagonist in Magic's future. Reoccurring villain, definitely has his hands or claws, whatever you want to call them, in a lot of plot lines in Magic's future. His artwork right now This is when he's old and ancient, but he would eventually seek to perform a immortality spell at the cost of several characters' lives. And he would be a lot more powerful than he's pictured here. He is my favorite character from the game as a whole. My favorite legendary planeswalker. Yes, he would become a planeswalker in the future as well. But as far as from the Legends set, I'm still got to go with Killer Bees. The North Star. 4 mana, tap it. You may cast one spell this turn by paying its casting cost with any type of mana. So this card lets you filter your mana if you're having problems getting the correct color. North Star will ensure that you can still cast the spell regardless. Nova Pentacle. Pay 4 mana. Pay 3 and tap it. Redirect damage done to you from one source to target creature of opponent's choice. So the opponent chooses where the damage goes. If it doesn't hit you, it goes to another creature that the opponent chooses. Osai Vultures. 2 mana, 1/1 flying. At the end of any turn which a creature died, put a counter on the vultures. Remove 2 counters to give the vultures +1/+1 until end of turn. A sign of battle, the vultures circle and wait for the victorious to depart. Not really that good. The fact that they only get +1/+1 until end of turn at the removal of 2 counters apiece makes them very underwhelming. I do like my birds though. Palladia Moors. White, red, green, flying, trample, 7/7. The 4th of the Elder Dragon cycle. The artwork is pretty good. This dragon looks like it's from hell. Part water. Has 2 X in its casting cost and a blue. X target creatures gain Island Walk until end of turn. And the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. Exodus 14:22. This is in reference to Moses parting the Red Sea. Pavel Maliki. 4, a red and a black. You pay a red and a black to give him +1 power until end of turn. We all know the legend. Pavel wanders the realms, helping those in greatest need, but is this a measure of his generosity or his obligation to atone? Pendelhaven, the legendary Greenland that you can also give a 1/1 creature +1/+2 until end of turn, making the meek mighty. This is the forest primeval, the murmuring pines and the hemlocks. Stand like druids of old, from Evangeline Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The Petra Sphinx. 5 mana, 3/4 flying. Tap it, target player names a card, then reveals the top card from their library. If it matches the name card, the card goes in its owner's hand, otherwise it goes to the graveyard. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 legs in the evening? That is the Sphinx's riddle, and the answer to that is man. Because 4 legs in the morning, you're crawling because you're a baby. 2 legs in the afternoon, you're able to walk like normal, and 3 legs in the evening, your third leg is a cane because now you're old. Pit Scorpion. 3 mana, 1/1. When it deals damage to an opponent, the opponent gets a poison counter. If the opponent has 10 or more poison counters, they lose the game. Alternate win condition. Sometimes the smallest nuisance can be the greatest pain. I love Scorpions. The artwork, even though it's somewhat primitive, I still like it. There's little skulls in the background here. I had a poison deck back in the day filled with snakes and scorpions. It wasn't that good because they are defensively underwhelming, but I did get a few wins with them. There's a snake called Marsh Viper that'll be revealed, I think, from the dark. Whenever it hits the opponent, they actually get 2 poison counters instead of 1. And then I used a lot of either unblockable or direct damage cards to get poison counters across. Poison would come back in a lot of the sets that have to do with the Phyrexians in more modern sets. And it would be a lot easier to put poison counters on the opponent than it was back in the day. Too easy in my opinion. Pixie Queen. This artwork is phenomenal. Shout out to Quentin Hoover. 4 mana, 1/1 flying. You can pay triple green and tap her to give target creature flying until end of turn. The artwork just amazes me as far as the colors used. Her eyes are beautiful. Just everything about the card. Stunning artwork. Planar Gate, 6 mana. Pay up to 2 less colorless when casting creature spells. Naraya reached through the gate, sensing the energies trapped beyond. Now this is better than the instant and sorcery one because there are a lot of high cost creatures out there. And this will ensure that they come out quicker because they cost 2 less. Got another bad card. Pradesh Gypsies, 3 mana, 1/1. You pay 2 and tap them. Target creature gets -2 power until end of turn. I don't know why this card is considered banned unless like Gypsies is kind of like a derogatory term to a certain demographic. But I don't see anything offensive about the card. Presence of the Master. Here, Albert Einstein strikes again. For 4 mana, while Presence of the Master is in play, no new enchantment or all other enchantments that are cast are countered. So you'd have to get rid of this enchantment before any other enchantments can be played. What Albert Einstein has to do with that, I have no idea. Primordial Ooze. For 1 red, it's a 1/1. It must attack each turn. It gets a +1/+1 at the end of your turn. A +1/+1 counter at the end of your upkeep. Then you must pay 1 colorless for each counter on it, or it does 1 damage to you for each counter on it, and then it becomes tapped. The thick moving mass from the beginning of evolution swallows and digests the animate and inanimate as it unthinkingly strives to continue its existence. These look like sewer pipes instead of a ooze. But another card where you must pay a certain cost, and if you can't pay the cost, you're going to pay the consequences. Gets bigger each turn. Princess Lucretia. Tap to add 1 blue to your mana pool. For 6 mana, you need somebody to tap for a blue. 5/4, nothing else. Not a good card, even though the artwork is pretty good. Psionic Entity. 5 mana, 2/2. You can tap it. It'll do 2 damage to any target, but then 3 damage to itself. Creatures of the Aether are notorious for neglecting their own well-being. If you could somehow regenerate it or make its toughness more than 3, then you can do 2 damage as you please to any target. Definitely a unique ability for blue, but blue would get more tap to deal 1 damage to target creature or player as the sets release. Psychic Purge. This guy looks like he just got... Does he even have a thumb? Is this his thumb? Psychic Purge does 1 damage to any target. If a spell cast by your opponent causes you to discard this card, the opponent loses 5 life. So that's really good against discard strategies. Puppet Master. For triple blue, if enchanted creature is placed in the graveyard, return it to its owner's hand. All enchantments on that creature are destroyed. You may pay triple blue again to return Puppet Master to own its hand if the creature was returned to its hand. False Demise is a better card because you won't even have to pay the mana for that. And it does the same thing. Pyrotechnics. 5 mana. Pyrotechnics deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. It is a sorcery. Hi, Ni-Ya, behold the man of flint. That's me. 4 lightning. Zigzag from me. Strike and return. The Navajo War Chant. The fact that you can distribute the damages you choose is really good because it could give you card advantage. Card advantage is if you use 1 card to take out more than 1 card on your opponent's side. One of the best terms of card advantage could be Wrath of God. If your opponent has 4 creatures out and you use Wrath of God, you just used 1 card to get rid of 4 of your opponent's cards. And that gives you card advantage because you still have cards in your hand, most likely, where they have less because they put them all out on the battlefield. Quagmire. Creatures with Swamp Walk may be blocked as though they did not have this ability. This guy thought he could go through the swamps okay, but he got stuck in the Quagmire. Giggity. Quorum Trench Gnomes. 4 mana, 1/1. Tap them. Target planes becomes... Alright, put a counter on target planes. Planes with those counters only produce a colorless mana instead of a white for the rest of the game. So this guy could get out of control and shut down any player from being able to cast any white spells. Oh, great captain, all is lost. They tunneled, they burrowed, they trenched. They sapped the strength of our defenses. From Chronicles of the Quorum Plains by Sorgus. Rabid Wombat. 4 mana, 0/1. It gets +2/+2 for each creature enchantment on it, and attacking does not cause it to tap. I ran Rabid Wombat in my Lure deck as well, since Lure is a creature enchantment. Putting Lure on the Rabid Wombat would ensure he's at least a 2/3, and since attacking doesn't cause him to tap, I could use him as a blocker too. It also had other enchantments like Regeneration, which would give him even more. I have enchantments that say enchant creature gets +2/+2 for each enchantment in play, pretty much giving the Rabid Wombat the ability twice. I have good memories of this card. But Killer Bees is still my favorite. You gotta go now. It's great to see you again. Until next time, have an amazing day. You too, Ivik. Pleasure as always. Rajin Spirit, 4 mana, 3/2. It looks like it should have flying, but it doesn't. You tap it, target creature loses flying until end of turn. Good green, well, not good, just regular flying counter for back in the day. Raging Bull, 3 mana, 2/2. Sometimes the Bulls win, sometimes the Bears win, but the Bulls have more fun. Speaking of Bears, so the Raging Bull is a 3 mana, 2/2. Grizzly Bears is a 2 mana, 2/2. So Grizzly Bears are far superior than the Raging Bull. So these Bulls have no business winning against Bears. Ragnar. Hey, it's Thor. He costs a blue, a green, and a white. You can pay a blue, green, and a white to regenerate target creature. He's only a 2/2. You would think with these kind of biceps he'd be even stronger. On the field of honor, a soldier need have no fear. Ramirez Di Pietro. 3, 2 black, and a blue. So 6 for 4/3 with first strike. Still costly. Ramirez Di Pietro is a most flamboyant pirate. Be careful not to believe his tall tales, especially when you ask his age. I thought it was a girl at first, but now he looks like Prince. Ramses Overdark. He definitely looks impending, but he's only a 4/3. Tap him to destroy a creature that has an enchantment on it. Now that's pretty good. You can even use this to your advantage by putting enchantments on your opponent's creatures, and then he will destroy them for you. Rapid Fire for 4 mana. This guy's going to town on this guy's shield. His sword even broke. Play before blockers are chosen. Target creature gets first strike until end of turn. If the creature does not have Rampage, it gains Rampage 2. Now, if your opponent doesn't see the Rampage coming, then that's definitely more powerful than if they know to expect Rampage, because they won't block with additional creatures then. Rasputin Dreamweaver, 4, a white and a blue. He's a 4/1. Put 7 counters on him when he enters the battlefield. You may remove a counter to prevent 1 damage dealt to him, or add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. Put 1 counter on him during your upkeep. If he started the turn untapped at any time, he may not have more than 7 counters on him. It's definitely a unique card, but 6 mana is a little bit costly for that. Rebirth for 6 mana. Each player may... I need some Rebirth. Let me drink some water. Each player may choose to be healed back to 20 life. Any player who chooses to be healed antes an additional card from the top of their deck. Remove this card from your deck before playing if you're not playing for ante. I thought ante was already retired, but apparently not. Recall for double X and a blue. Sacrifice or discard X cards from your hand to bring X cards from your graveyard back to your hand. Then you remove Recall from the game. Definitely a really good card. You can discard cards that you want in the graveyard and bring back cards that you've used already. And the fact that they can be any cards makes it even better. You can bring back cards that say take an extra turn, so on and so forth. I can see why you have to exile Recall from the game. Red mana battery just does the same as all the other color batteries do. Reincarnation. Old man who got executed and took an arrow to the forehead got reincarnated into, this is either a lion or a manticore. 3 mana. If target creature dies this turn, bring a creature from your graveyard directly into play. So for green, you're swapping a creature that died with a different creature that's already in the graveyard. Relic Barrier. For 2 mana, you tap it, target artifact becomes tapped. Relic Bind. For 3 mana, you put it on an artifact. When enchanted artifact becomes tapped, the controller of Relic Bind can choose to deal 1 damage to any player or gain 1 life. That's an interesting card. Remove enchantments. For 1 white, remove all enchantments you control and remove all enchantment cards played on all permanents you control. This spell is cast during the opponent's combat step. Remove all enchantment cards on attacking creatures. All enchantments you control are returned to your hand, but all other enchantments are destroyed. For an enchantment-heavy set, pretty good card. Remove Soul. I'm surprised the artwork for this card didn't get banned. This guy's like naked too. 2 mana, counter target creature spell. Nethia stiffened suddenly, head cocked as a string to hear some distant sound, then fell lifeless to the ground. Somebody tried to cast a spell here, but the spell got countered, so the flesh wasn't able to form on the skeleton, and the creature just goes to the graveyard. Reset. For 2 blue, all lands on tap. Reset can only be played on your opponent's turn after their upkeep. This ensures if you're using counter spells that all your mana is untapped to be able to counter the opponent. Revelation. For 1 green, all players play with their entire hand face up on the table. Many are in high place and of renown, but mysteries are revealed unto the meek. From Ecclesiastes? I can't say that. Reverberation. For 4 mana, damage from 1 sorcery spell is redirected to its caster. Now this one, if somebody fireballs you for 20, you can cast this, and since it's redirected, you won't take any damage, and they'll eat all 20 damage from their own fireball. Righteous Avengers. 5 mana, 3/1, Planeswalk. I think they're even more better. If you can withstand the wrath of the righteous. Not a good card at all. I mean, I guess they're unblockable if the opponent has planes, but they only have 1 toughness, so they'll be easily killed with spells. Ring of Immortals. For 5 mana, you pay 3 and tap it. Counter target interrupt or enchantment. It could only counter a spell which targets a permanent under your control. This ability is played as an interrupt. So you can, because it's an artifact that counters instants and enchantments, that's pretty powerful. But it can only target something that targets a spell or that targets a permanent you control, so it does have its limitations. Riven Turnbull. 7 mana. It's burning up a contract, I see. 5/7, you tap them to add a black. What is it with these really heavy casting cost creatures that tap for mana? That makes no sense to me. Because once you're able to put these guys out, you don't really need mana. Political violence is a perfectly legitimate answer to the persecution handed down by the dignitaries of state. Relgarn of Kur Keep. 2 red, 2 black, 2 colorless. All your kobolds of Kur Keep get +2/+2. You have to pay triple red during your upkeep, or he and all your kobolds of Kur Keep become tapped and under your opponent's control. Keep him happy or he'll betray you. Again, he's a kobold card, so if you're running kobolds, you would use him. Rabinia, Soul Singer. Tap her, gain control of target creature. Rabinia does not tap or untap this creature. If she becomes untapped, you lose control of the creature. If she leaves the battlefield, you also lose control of the creature. Definitely a powerful card in Commander, because once you have 5 mana, then you're gaining control of their commander most of the time. Rust. For 1 green, you target an artifact ability, which requires an activation cost. Not really that well of a card. How dull it is to pause, to make an end, to rust unburnished, not to shine in use, as though to breathe were life. From Ulysses Alfred Lord Tennyson. Seafarer's Quay. It's the sucky blue banding land. Sea King's Blessing. For 1 blue, it changes the color of any number of creatures to blue. Seeker. For 4 mana, target creature cannot be blocked by any creatures except for white and artifact creatures. Segovian Leviathan. 5 mana, 3/3 island walk. I do like the artwork on it. It gives me tropical island vibes. It's like a giant catfish sea serpent. You can see based on its size, these aren't fish. These are whales. So if these are whales, then this is truly a Leviathan. However, the fact that it's just a 3/3 diminishes this size difference in the art. He has Island Walk, so he'd be unblockable against blue. Leviathan 2, can you catch him with a fish hook or run a line around his tongue? From Job 40:25. Sentinel. For 4 mana, he has 1 power and X toughness. When he's originally cast, X is 1. When he's blocking, you may choose to change his toughness equal to the power of the creature he's blocking. When it attacks, you may choose to change his toughness to the power that of the creature that is blocking Sentinel. Weird situational card. Serpent Generator. 6 mana, pay 4, you tap it, put a snake token onto the battlefield. Treat this as a 1/1 artifact creature. If this creature damages an opponent, they get a poison counter. I would have loved to have this card in my old school poison deck. I would still love to have this card this day. Snakes are my favorite animal. The artwork is incredible. Just the fact that somehow this generator turns molten lava into snakes. I would love this card. If I owned it, it would be my favorite, but I did not own it, so Killer Bees is still going to get the win. Shulkin Brownie. For 2 mana, 1/1, tap him, he removes banding from target creature until end of turn. Like anyone cares, banding is so dumb. Leave a bowl of milk on your doorstep each night for the brownies, or they'll cause you no end of mischief. Shield Wall. For 2 mana, all your creatures get +2 toughness until end of turn. This guy's shield doesn't have any insignia on it. Shimeon Nightstalker. 5 mana, 4/4. You can pay a black and tap him. Redirect all damage done to you from any one attacking creature to the Shimeon Nightstalker. So he's like a pariah creature. 'Tis now the very witching time of the night, when churchyards yawn and hell itself breathes out. Contagion to this world. From Hamlet by William Shakespeare. Silhouette. 2 mana. Until end of turn, damage done to target creature by spells or abilities that target it is reduced to 0. Another quick creature protection spell. Sir Chandlar of Eberron. 4 mana, or 6 mana for a 4/7. Remember Sir Chandlar. Remember and stand firm. Rallying cry of the Eberron militia. This is where we stopped on the former stream. I ended up deleting the former stream just because, like I said, I want full sets to stay on one video each. I didn't want to split it up into two different streams. Savitri Scarzum, 7 mana, 6/4. The card itself is not good, but the artwork is just amazing. Even the brave have cause to tremble at the sight of Savitri Scarzum. Who else has tamed Scarzum's dragon? The dragon looks pretty cool. It looks like a seahorse. Is she a merfolk? How is she a human? I guess unless this is... No, because she has like frills here. I think she should be a merfolk, not a human, but whatever. Solkanar the Swamp King. Solkanar the Swamp King. King Swamp. Although I look better than this guy. A red, a blue, a black. 2 colors. He's a 5/5 with Swamp Walk. Gain 1 life each time a black spell is cast. That's pretty good though. Spectral Cloak. For 2 blue mana, enchanted creature cannot be targeted by instant sorceries, fast effects. That's the first time I've seen fast effects on a card. Or enchantments unless the creature is tapped. So the creature gets hexproof unless he is tapped. Not hexproof, he just can't be targeted. Shroud. I think Shroud's the key word for that. Spinal Villain. I don't even know what this is. Is he a horror? Oh, he's a beast. 3 mana, tap it to destroy target blue creature. Striking silent as a dream, cutting short the strangled scream from Watch Dragon, Toberan. Now with all there's a lot of cards that change the color of target creature. So you can use this combo with Spinal Villain. Whatever creature they have, change it to a blue creature and Spinal Villain can take it out. Spirit Link. For 1 white, enchanted creature gains lifelink. Lifelink is the keyword for you gain life equal to the amount of damage that the creature deals. White would have that a lot. Spirit Shackle. For 2 black, put a -0, -2 counter on enchanted creature every time it becomes tapped. It's a weird card. Spiritual Sanctuary. Any player with planes under his or her control gains 1 life during their upkeep. It's a slow gain 1 life a turn card. Stang. That's funny. It's a 1-syllable word. Stang. Is he like a bee knight? Is this supposed to be like Sting, but how a New Yorker would say, it's Stang. 4 for a red and a green. He's only a 3/4 for 6. That's not good. When he enters the battlefield, put a Stang Twin token onto the battlefield. Treat this token as a red-green legend. If Stang leaves play, remove the token from the game. If the Stang Twin leaves play, sacrifice Stang. Oh, that's even worse. I mean, you get 2 creatures for the price of 1, but when one of them goes away, so does the other. So that's not good. Stormseeker. For 4 mana, deal 1 damage to an opponent for every card in their hand. Really good card for green. If the opponent still has like a full hand, you can do up to 7 since it's an instant. Let's say your opponent drew like 5 cards on their turn. This is an instant. You can punish them for the card draw by casting Stormseeker. Green does not have a lot of direct damage spells, so this is a rare card, a rare instance of direct damage from green. Storm World, Enchant World. For 1 red, if any player has less than 4 cards in their hand during their upkeep, Storm World does 1 damage to that player for each card less than 4. You gotta keep track of those cards in your hand, otherwise that card will hurt you. Subdue. For 1 green, target creature deals no combat damage but gains X toughness until end of turn, where X is the target creature's casting cost. It's just like the Crying Shield, just in instant form. The spear really got mangled against this beast. Celestian Falconeer. Pay 5 mana for a 4/4. Tap it to add 2 mana to your mana pool. This ability can only be used for instances. Not a good card at all either. Celestian has roots in both sorcery and swordplay. He has learned never to depend too heavily on the latter. Sword of the Ages. 6 mana. It comes into play tap. Tap it and sacrifice it and as many creatures as you choose. Sword deals damage equal to the combined power of the sacrificed creatures to any target. Sacrificed creatures in the sword are then removed from the game. I did not know this card existed. Even though it costs a lot of mana to do, you could essentially win the game in one swing with the sword. Sacrifice a bunch of big power creatures in it, and your opponent takes an insane amount of damage. Sylvan Library for 2 mana. This library does look pretty cool. It's like a giant tree. You may draw 2 extra cards during your draw step. Then put 2 cards drawn in this way back on top of your library in any order. Or you may lose 4 life per card to keep them in your hand. It's definitely a powerful card draw engine for green at the cost of 4 life if you want to keep the cards in hand. Sylvan Paradise. She's naked. Like, there's titty here. How is this card not like banned because of the artwork? This changes target creatures green. This is the green version of color changing, color swapping. I still can't believe she's butt naked. Siphon Soul. For 3 mana, you deal 2 damage. Or Siphon Soul does 2 damage to all players except for its caster. So 2 damage to each opponent. Caster gains life equal to the total amount of damage done by Siphon Soul. So this card gets better in group game. Her lips suck forth. See where it flies. From the tragical history of Dr. Faustus from Christopher Marlowe. So if you have 5 opponents, you're gaining 10 life with this card. Tackle Maggot. Where's Vinny? This is one of Vinny's favorite cards. 4 mana. I thought it was a creature, but it's a creature enchantment. Put a 0/1 toughness counter on enchanted creature during its controller's upkeep. If that creature gets put into the graveyard, its controller chooses a new target for Tackle Maggot. If there are no legal targets for Tackle Maggot becomes an enchantment and does 1 damage to the controller of the last creature Tackle Maggot was on during that person's upkeep. Tackle Maggot does not revert to a creature enchantment even if other creatures enter the battlefield afterwards. So, flavor-wise, it's a really good parasitic card. Once it goes through all your creatures, if you run out of creatures, then it attaches to you, and then it slowly feasts on your life points each turn. I can see why Vinny likes the card. The artwork is pretty good. It's got alien vibes. Definitely a unique card. Telekinesis. For 2 blue, target creature deals no damage during combat this turn. Creature becomes tapped and may not untap as normal during its controller's next 2 untap steps. Also, it's like stun counters for 2. Teleport for triple blue. Target creature cannot be blocked until end of turn. Play after combat is declared, but before blockers are chosen. So 3 blue, target creature is unblockable. It's pretty good for back in the day. Tempest of Freet. 4 mana, 3/3. Tap it to pick a card at random from your opponent's hand and place it in your hand. Sacrifice Tempest of Freet into your opponent's graveyard. The change of ownership is permanent. Oh, this is another one of those anti-cards. I was about to say, the fact that you swap cards in hand, that's crazy. Alright, we are almost done. We're on the home stretch. Tetsuo Umezawa. He is another antagonist or protagonist, and I think he actually was one of the first characters to fight Nicol Bolas back in Magic's history. You can pay 2 black, a blue, and a red. Destroy target tap creature or target blocking creature. Tetsu may not be the target of any creature enchantment spells. So he can destroy an attacking creature or a blocking creature. Very good card. The Abyss for 4 mana. All players sacrifice 1 target non-artifact creature under their control if they have any during their upkeep. Any immense river of oblivion is sweeping us away into a nameless abyss. From Souvenirs de Effanance de Genot from Ernest Renan. If you're not running creatures, this is a good card to stop your opponent from being able to have too many creatures out on the battlefield. I did not know this existed. The Brute enchantment. Enchanted creature gets +1 power, and you can pay triple red to regenerate that creature. Union may be strength, but it is more blind brute strength unless wisely directed, by Samuel Butler. This guy's hulking out. The Lady of the Mountain. 6 mana 5/5 doesn't do anything. Her given name has been lost in the mists of time. Legend says that her silent vigil will one day be ended by the one who, pure of heart and spirit, calls out that name again. The Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale. All creatures now require an upkeep of 1 colorless mana in addition to their other upkeep costs they may have. If the upkeep cost is not paid for each creature, that creature is destroyed. Now, even though this land does not tap for mana, it is an excellent crowd control card. The more creatures your opponent has out, or you as well, the more mana they have to pay and keep track of. Otherwise, they risk losing that creature. The Wretched for 5 mana. He is a demon. He's a 2/5. At the end of combat, gain control of all creatures that blocked the Wretched. The Wretched does not tap or untap these creatures. You lose control of those creatures if the Wretched leaves play. The Wretched look like it would have flying. It looks like it has wings, but it actually does not fly. I would have to say, I want to say the Wretched might be better for my favor than Killer Bees. Because if I saw Killer Bees and the Wretched next to each other, I would want to own the Wretched over Killer Bees. So I'm going to have to go with the Wretched. Thunder Spirit, 3 mana 2/2, flying and first strike. Really good card for back in the day. It was full of fire and smoke and light. It drove between us and the Ephraim's like 1,000 thunderstorms with lightning. From Watership Down, Richard Adams. Oh, that's a cool reference. Watership Down. Definitely a not a kid-friendly cartoon. Animated movie, I should say. Based off the book. Time Elemental. 3 mana 0/2. Pay 4 and tap it to return target permanent to its owner's hand. It cannot target any permanents with enchantments on them. If Time Elemental attacks or blocks, it is destroyed and does 5 damage to its controller. It looks like a dragonfly made out of clocks. Tobias Andrian, 5 mana 4/4. He doesn't do anything. Administrator of the military state of Shielton, Tobias is the military right arm of the empire and the figurehead of its freedom. Teleria, legendary land, taps for a blue. During your upkeep, remove the banning ability from another target creature until end of turn. Fairest Island, all islands excelling, Seat of Pleasures and Loves by John Dryden. Teleria would be an important land in Magic's future as well. We would see it again. Torsten von Ursus. I noticed a lot of these knights have green in their mana cost, which is weird. He costs 6 mana for a 5/5. He does nothing either. So A lot of these legends are very underwhelming. Uh, of course, that would be fixed as Magic gets older and older. How can you accuse me of evil? Though these deeds be unsavory, no one will argue good shall follow from them. Yeah, I think this should have been black instead of green. Torwaki. 2 red, or 2 black and a red and 2. 3/3. Tap him to deal 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. A lot of archers, like archery people, or just archer creatures in general, will have that ability where they do damage to a target attacking or blocking creature. Touch of Darkness. The artwork on this card is amazing. It's like this elf is becoming a demon. This changes the... This is the black color changing card. Transmutation. 2 mana. And this fairy is turning into some sort of bug or monster as well. To end a turn, target creature's power and toughness are switched. Effects that alter power and alter toughness instead also are altered in that way. You know what I was, you see what I am. Change me, Randall. So if you have creatures that normally have good toughness, like turtles, transmutation will turn that toughness to power until end of turn. This could also be used to kill a wall. If a wall has no attack or no power and you switch it, its toughness will become 0, then it'll automatically die. Triassic Egg. For 4 mana, you pay 3, tap it, put a counter on it. If there are at least 2 counters on it, you may sacrifice the egg and take any creature from your hand or graveyard and put it onto the battlefield. Treat this as though the creature was just summoned. I did not know this card existed. Pretty cool. Tuckner Deathlock. I don't even know what's going on in the artwork here. Is he headless? Oh, he's a wizard, so this must be his astral self. He's got a Triceratops skull and some other prehistoric creature skulls for his helmet. He's a 2/2 with flying. You pay a red and a green to tap him. Target creature gets +2/+2 and end of turn. An explorer of the Aether, Tuckner often discovers himself in the most unusual of physical realms. He looks high as a kite, to be honest. Tundra Wolves. Another classic favorite of mine. 1/1 first strike. I heard their eerie howling, the wolves calling their kindred across the frozen plain. Wolves would eventually go to the colors red and green in Magic's future. Typhoon deals 1 damage to each opponent for each island they control. Another rare instance of green having direct damage. Fierce winds ripped across the tropical landscape. What they did not destroy with their fiery breath was washed away by torrential rain. Undertow. I've never seen this card. 3 mana. Creatures with Island Walk. Oh, that's the Island Walk hoser. Underworld Dreams. I did not know that this is the set that this card originated in. Costs 3 black. Underworld Dreams does 1 damage to an opponent every time they draw a card. In the drowsy dark cave of the Mind of Dreams, build their nest with fragments dropped from Day's Caravan, from Rabid Dragnith to Gore. Definitely really good card. It can be comboed with Teferi's Puzzle Box, which forces each player to draw cards equal to the number of cards in their hand. So that would do a whopping 7 damage right then and there. Underworld Dreams would get reprinted several times. Definitely a powerful card for black. And I do believe this is the last page that we're on. Nope. We still got one more page after this, I think. Unholy Citadel. It's the black banding crap land. Untamed Wilds. For 3, search your library for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield. This does not count to your land limit for the turn. It gives green 1 mana ahead. Urborg taps for a black. You can tap it to remove the first strike or swamp walk ability from a creature. Drago. He's got a cool helmet. First strike, creatures with Swamp Walk may be blocked as though they did not have that ability. But he does cost 7. So that is still costly. And the last, Elder Dragon Legend, Vivictus Asmadi. 7/7 flying. You can, whatever color you pay, whether it be black, green, or red, he temporarily gets 1 attack or 1 power until the end of your turn. And then, you, of course, you have to pay the iconic Elder Dragon cost. But he is an offense, or she is definitely an offensive dragon. Vampire Bats. 1 black, 0/1 flying. You have to pay a black to give him +1 power until end of turn. No more than 2 black may be spent in this way. I used Vampire Bats a lot back in the day. When I started playing Magic, I got a lot of hand-me-down cards, like cards that people who already played didn't want anymore. And Vampire Bats isn't good, but I like the whole bat theme. I like the artwork on it, so I used them a lot. I didn't win many games back in the day. I was still learning how to play, but I still had a lot of fun, and Vampire Bats was in my first black deck. But the Wretched is still going to be my favorite card from the set, I believe. Venarian Gold. 2 blue and X. This guy's standing on a giant bear. Put X counters on enchanted creature. That creature becomes tapped. The creature does not untap as normal. If it has any counters on it, remove 1 counter during the controller's upkeep phase. So that keeps him tapped for a temporary amount of turns. Visions for 1 white. Oriental artwork. Yeah, the artist is Naile Thomas. You may look at the top 5 cards of your library, and then you may choose to shuffle your library. So if you're not happy with the next 5 cards you're drawing, you can shuffle your library. Visions of Glory, spare my aching sight. Ye unborn ages crowd not on my soul. From the Bard by Thomas Gray. Voodoo Doll, 6 mana. Put a counter on Voodoo Doll during your upkeep. If Voodoo Doll is not tapped at the end of your turn, it does X damage to you and is destroyed. X equals the number of counters on Voodoo Doll. Pay X twice and tap it to deal X damage to any one target. That's a good Time Bomb-esque card, but if you can't afford the mana, then its drawback is going to come back and voodoo you back. Did not know it existed. The Walking Dead. Nice artwork. 2 mana 1/1. Regenerates for a black. It's like Drudge Skeletons, but as a zombie instead. The Walking Dead are remnants of freakish experiments by necromantic lords. We need to call Daryl Dixon to take him out. Or Rick Grimes. Wall of Caltrops. Oh god, this poor person stepped on these spikes. You see the holes in his shoes, or in his boot, and his foot is bleeding heavily. It is a 2/1 wall. If Wall of Caltrops and 1 or more other walls block an attacker and no other creatures, Wall of Caltrops gains banding until end of turn. Ow, 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 ow. That's a dumb card, though. Wall of Dust. 3 mana for a 1/4. Creatures blocked by Wall of Dust cannot attack until your opponent's next turn. Put counters on them to mark those creatures. An ever-moving swarm of dust engulfs and disorients anything that comes near. Pretty cool card. Wall of Earth. 2 mana 0/6. The ground shuddered violently and the earth seemed to come to life. The elemental force contained in the vast wall of earth was trapped, bent to its controller's will. We're wrapping it up soon. Wall of Heat. 3 mana 2/6. This wall can actually deal damage. At a distance, we mistook the sound for a waterfall. Wall of Light. I've never seen this card. 3 mana 1/5 protection from black. As many attackers were dazzled by the wall's beauty as were halted by its force. Did not know that they had a wall that had protection from black. Wall of Opposition. I did have this wall. 5 mana 0/6. You can pay 1 colorless to give the wall +1 power until end of turn. Like so many obstacles in life, the wall of opposition is an illusion held fast by the focus and belief of the one who creates it. Giving the wall +1 power, I mean, it could be a blocker that could kill something if you left your mana open. I know I used it in that fling deck I was talking about, where you pump a creature's toughness up and then sacrifice it to deal 1 damage, or to do damage equal to its power to any target. So I did use the Wall of Opposition for that. Wall of Putrid Flesh. This card looks disgusting. It looks like a pile of trash. 3 mana, 2/4, protect from white. Damage done to Wall of Putrid Flesh by creatures with enchantments on them is reduced to 0. I'm going to throw up. Blah. Wall of Shadows. 3 mana, 0/1. Damage dealt by Wall of Shadows from creatures that it blocks is reduced to 0. Effects that target walls may not target Wall of Shadows. That's interesting. Wall of Tombstones. 2 mana, 0/1 plus X, where X is at the end of your upkeep. The X is set to the number of creatures in your graveyard. I did not know this existed either. Wall of Vapor. 4 mana, 0/1. Damage done to Wall of Vapor by creatures it blocks is reduced to 0. Walls of a castle are made out of stone. Walls of a house out of bricks or of wood. My walls are made out of magic alone, stronger than any have ever stood. From Chryslobral, Earth's Daughter, Incantations. You can definitely see the wizard here is 2 hands together forming the wall. And now the last page, Wall of Wonder. It's a 1/5 for 4 mana. Pay 4. It gets +4, -4 into end of turn, and it can attack. That's cool because then it becomes a 5/1. So confusing is the wall's appearance that few of its victims even see it move. So we got a butterfly, an eyeball, some tentacles. This jacket. Oh yeah, it is a Jack in the Box. That's crazy. Crazy card. Pretty cool though. For a wall. Oh, I remember this card. Whirling Dervish. 2 green for a 1/1 protection from black. At the beginning, or it gets a +1/+1 counter at the end of each turn at which it damaged an opponent. So it starts off small, but if your opponent lets the Dervish hit them, it gets bigger and bigger until it won't be able to be. Since it has protection from black, it is harder to destroy with kill spells. Here's the white mana battery. Willow Satyr. 4 mana, 1/1. Tap it to gain control of target legendary creature. Or is it legendary permanent? Gain control of target legend. If Willow Satyr becomes untapped, you lose control of that legend. You may choose not to untap the Willow Satyr as normal. You also lose control of the legend if Willow Satyr leaves play. Legend matters card. Winds of Change. For 1 red, all players shuffle their hands into their libraries and then draw the same cards they originally held. 'Tis a set of sails and not the gales which tells us the way to go. From Ella Wheeler Wilcox. Giving red the ability to recycle their hand is pretty strong. If they ended up using their burn spells and are holding on to land or cards they don't want to cast, Winds of Change would help them get more burn spells, which is detrimental to their opponent. Winter Blast, an X in green. X target creatures become tapped. Winter Blast does 2 damage to each target creature that has flying. So you tap X creatures and Winter Blast does 2 damage to each creature with flying. Oh, each of those creatures with flying that become tapped. Alright, it's not as good as I originally thought. Wolverine Pack. Hey bub, Rampage. 4 mana, 2/4. Give them great meals of beef and iron and steel, and they will eat like wolves and fight like devils. From King Henry V, William Shakespeare. Wood Elemental. 4 mana. X equals the number of untapped force you sacrifice when Wood Elemental enters the battlefield. So at least it's a one-time change, but you do have to sacrifice untapped force, which is even like a slower sacrifice. So you definitely don't want to cast them early. and if you could survive your mana base afterwards. Zira Arian. She's a wasp woman. Yep, insect wizard. A black, a red, and a green. She's a 1/2 flying. You can pay the same to tap her. Target player draws a card. A regular guest at the Royal Masquerade, Arian is the envy of the court. She appears in a new costume every hour. Draw a card for 3 mana, and it's target player. So if you have a teammate, you can help out your teammate too. Zephyr Falcon, one of my old favorites and blue creatures that I had in my first blue deck. 1/1 flying, attacking does not cause Zephyr Falcon to tap. So each turn, if they don't have any creatures with flying, the Falcon would just hit them for 1 each turn. And I would put like Unstable Mutation on it. So then it would be a 4/4 Falcon, and then next turn 3/3, next turn 2/2. And then the Falcon would eventually die, but that's still a lot of damage early on. Although greatly prized among the falconers, the Zephyr Falcon is capricious and not easily tamed. The artwork is amazing. Shouts to Heather Hudson. And that will do it for the Legends expansion for Magic the Gathering. We'll go back to the Wretched. As we close out, oh, there he is. Boom. So the Wretched gets my favorite card from the set. Killer Bees was close. But I do own the Wretched, and the artwork looks great. And his ability is pretty cool for black to do. This weekend, I think the next set coming up is the Dark or Fallen Empires. I'll be able to let you know in a minute. Yep, the Dark comes next. So that'll be this Saturday. So if you had any memories or owned or deck strategies, if you played Magic during the time Legends came out, or if you owned any Legend cards, and feel free to write in the comments what your favorite cards from the set are/were. And again, I will see you guys again on Saturday as we delve into the Dark. Have a good night and take care as always.